Hey everybody, how are you? I got up, put my swimming costume on, threw a dress over the top, mucked around a little bit. Now it's like 9:30, quarter to 10. So I'm going to walk the beach. It's just beautiful today, as it always is. It rained all day yesterday. So I'll get down there, enjoy it. It's still really quite warm. And enjoy it and have a swim before it gets really cold. So I'm looking forward to that refreshing swim in that sea. I just want to come on quickly and talk about allowance. I've got a blaster class coming up next week. So there's been a little bit on my feed about allowance, and I wanted to just talk about what is allowance. It's not acceptance. Acceptance is when you actually think something's wrong. So you have to believe it's wrong first, and then someone says sorry, or you go, oh well, I'm just going to have to accept their behaviour. But you actually have to believe and feel and live as if there's something wrong. So that's a lower level of allowance, and it's not going to get you to the same level of calm and peace and that nervous system regulation as allowance does. Now, allowance is allowing the present moment to be what it is, regardless of what's going on. And it's allowing you to be who you are, regardless of what's going on in your life. So it's so about non-resistance and about non-judgment. And yes, it is not always the easiest thing to do, but it is the most powerful. I would say alongside gratitude, and they go together, because gratitude increases your allowance and allowance increases your gratitude. So they're hard to pull apart, but they are slightly different. Allowance isn't even just sitting there going thank you for it, but gratitude will help. Allowance is just being with something as it is right now in your life or my life, and with me or you personally. And yeah, it's not always the simplest thing to get to, but it's so important, and it's the first two things I teach anyone I work with, is to allow the now, to be in this present moment without judgment, and to be grateful. And like I said, they go together. So allowance is allowing now without putting a meaning, an extra ego type of label onto it. So let's just say, to explain it, a friend reaches out and says, let's do this. And then an hour before she goes, hey, look, it's just not working for me now. Doesn't feel right. I just don't feel like doing that. And you're like, oh, okay. Instead of just being like, okay, well, she's choosing for her, and it doesn't feel right to have a walk on the beach anymore, or whatever. Doesn't feel right to go out to dinner, and she's not feeling right about it. Or she just doesn't feel great. You know, she's not 100%. You might go, oh, does she not like me as much? Is she going out with other friends? Or that's not really kind. Why is she being unkind? She's just dumped me an hour before. So you can see these are all ego brain-based patterns, or based off old patterns you've got. So every point of view we've got comes from a pattern. So that's an ego-based meaning or label. And as soon as you label life, guess what? It shows up that way, because you're just deeply wiring in more patterns that people don't treat you right. So if you've got this thing about people don't treat me right, and then a friend does that, you're probably likely to be like, oh, here we go again. Here's another person doing that to me. People are so mean. And you won't do it consciously. It'll happen unconsciously. And then what happens is you create more of it. So then someone else does actually do something to you that is unkind, because what you've done is you've activated those lower thinking patterns that you already have from childhood. You've triggered off that ego-based meaning and labeling. So what allowance is like, okay, friend isn't going to come. Okay, wow, that's cool. She's choosing for her. How does it get better? I wonder what else I could do tonight instead. So it's a different way to be completely with the present moment and with what's going on. And it is the most powerful, because guess what creates all our stress is our resistance. Our resistance and reaction to everything outside of us and to ourselves. That's what actually creates our stress. You notice when you let go of something and surrender it, and you're just like, oh well, not much I can do about it, the stress drops and the problem solves itself generally. It just goes away, or an option shows up for you that wasn't there before. But if you're pushing and forcing and trying to fix it, you're in the same loop of thinking. So resisting the outside of you is in the same loop of thinking that created the outside. Because guess what? You're the co-creator of your reality, and it's always lagging behind. So it's always lagging. So you might have had thinking a year ago and a way of being that creates something showing up now. The universe is like an Amazon store, but it doesn't deliver in 3 days necessarily. It just depends where your energy is at, where your thinking is at, if you're blocking it or not, and the right timing. So the universe knows the how, and we do the allow. So my work takes you from the how to the allow, and handing the how over. Sorry, just lots of fisher people on the beach today on their quads. So I'm just going to wait for them to go past. I'll just show you. So it's not technically a road, but you can bring horses down it, and you are allowed quads on it. Pretty common in New Zealand. And everyone goes fishing, especially on a sunny day, any time of year. We love our seafood, and Kiwis love harvesting it themselves. So, yeah, allowance is just huge, because as soon as you're a non-allowance, guess what? You kick off your cortisol. You kick off the adrenal glands. You kick off all the hormones that send you into more stress. Now, that's what we call beta in the brain. That's the brain frequency. So in the brain, we have a beta frequency that most people are in. And the more you trigger it off, you go into a lower beta. And there's never possibility in that brain frequency. It's always problems. So to really, really manifest our dreams with ease and flow, we get that brain lifting into a higher frequency. It's actually a slower frequency as well. It slows down. Then we need to get ourselves up into alpha, theta, or gamma. We have to allow the now, because then we're not triggering the same old shitty pattern that we were born with, the same old way of being, the same old doing and acting and feelings and emotions that we've had in the past. And yes, it is not an overnight thing, but it's so worth doing. So, and if you're really resonating with this, yeah, just give me a comment in the thread. So, we create our own stress 99% of the time. Yes, a boss might say something, yeah, we don't have control over. Yes, the government might do something we don't have control over, because we never do. We never have control over anything outside of us. We think we do, but we can control our reaction. We can control how we show up. We can control whether we go into acceptance. Oh, you did something wrong, but I'll accept it, which is a lower frequency and still keeps that brain in beta. And someone called Dawson Church has a cool concept around the bliss brain. And that's the brain that you go into a higher state, where all the synchronicities show up, where people turn up when you just need them. The resources show up. You're calm, you're peaceful, you're open, and you're receiving. And that's what my work does. It takes you into that higher bliss brain. And, you know, people get a bit tied up with it thinking it's woo-woo. It's actually not. There's like so much science, quantum physics, and all this brain science that shows that if you react to the present moment, you're in it and you stay in that loop. That loop I call the deja vu loop. So who would rather be in the magical manifesting loop? Now that loop is observing the now, bringing curiosity to it. Okay, that's what happened. What do I need to do here? Do I have emotions? It's all about asking, okay, what emotions can I release? And then go through some processes to release emotions. And I teach those to my clients too, and there's some written ones that help too. And then it's like, observe it, keep observing it, keep shifting any emotions or points of views out of the way that don't allow you to observe it. It's just what it is. And then you ask for greater. So you're observing, you're like, okay, how does it get better than this? What else is possible here? Universe, show me allowance right now. As you're observing it, if you're struggling with it, then we work on releasing, seeing the blocks to you being an allowance, and then we're asking for greater and tapping into what we desire instead. So it's a whole shift in structure. It's a shift in two different types of structure. You're either in a problem-solving loop, and it's a structure that pulls you forward. It actually keeps you in the past, but it's still pulling you forward. And what happens is your future's full of the same. And then we have a structure that's the super conscious, super aware, super creative, super potent loop, the magical manifestation loop, which pulls you forward too. But guess what pulls you forward? Not fixing problems, but creating a beautiful reality beyond what everyone else calls a problem. So that's pretty much what I do with people. And when you flick over to that new structure and you're now creating your reality and you're an allowance as much as you can of your reality, then that's when the things show up. Because every time you judge something, or it's like putting a big wall, an energetic wall up. You might as well put a concrete blocks in front of you. So if you're like, oh, you have to work hard for money, you know, that's what it's just, you just have to work hard and be determined, and that's just the way it is, then you've got a wall to receiving money in a different way. You've got non-allowance for it to come in a magical way. So when I dropped those walls through the work that I do with my clients, journaling and gentle meditations and things and self-awareness processes, money would show up in the most weird and wonderful ways, because I had the same point of view. You have to work hard. You have to work for your money. It's hard. Money's hard to get. Okay? So it creates literally a block, and you will not see any other way through it, because what the brain does, it only shows you what you believe. And the more you're judging something, you are making it a belief. Yes, that friend is like that. I'm not going to be her friend anymore. Yes, my child is like that. Wow, why did they do that? You're creating a belief. But what the belief does, it just reinforces the underlying pattern where you think life is hard, where you think life's a problem, where you think that you're not good enough and you're not perfect and you don't belong and you don't have the resources and you don't have the capabilities. Now, we've all got versions of that, including me, but I've rewired so much of it that I can see it really fast when it pops up. And I've just rewired so much that I don't see myself like that anymore. Yes, I have my days. Yes, I have my moments, but I can flick pretty quickly back out of it. Because, yeah, I'm human and I have a brain. And our brains are designed to keep us the same way. Because the brain thinks it's more stressful to try something new that might fix it, not fix it because I don't do fixing, but might create a different reality and shift you into a new whole quantum leap of a new reality. It thinks it's more stressful to do that than stay where you are, because it's wired those initial underlying patterns or schemas in to keep you safe. Like, I'm not good enough, so I shouldn't try that, because last time I tried something I got really hurt and I got told I wasn't good enough. So it's all about keeping us safe. So unless we bring allowance to the now, we can't actually go into a new thing or take risks. Because if you're just judging everything, you're going back down the same old patterns, the same old routes, and not much will change. You might get an incremental change, like you might get a slight increase in your income. You might get a slight increase in something, joy with your body, but it's not going to be an explosive quantum leap, which is what I teach my clients. So you can go from feeling like crap to 2 days later loving on yourself more, because you're flipped into this new structure. You're not listening to the brain. You're not activating the old pattern as much. So allowance is huge. And I've got a masterclass this week, really low price, hour and a half long. You get the replay as a course where we'll do some meditating to calm you, and we'll have a look at some of your blocks to why you can't allow. And that's the key. It's actually self-awareness, not being positive. Being positive just sits over the top of when you feel shitty about yourself. And you have to be authentic with your emotions and release them to also create your reality in a beautiful, fun, exciting, flowing way, because that energy is still there otherwise. Doesn't matter what you do, push and force and try and work hard towards your goal, but your energetics don't lie. They will still have sadness there and anger at you and guilt, and that's also a block. So what are the key things really then for allowance? Is number one, outside you is a co-creation. Number one, as I said, we're co-creating it. We've created it with our way of being. We've created it with our thoughts, our actions, and our energetics. So number one, everything outside us is just an illusion based on those patterns. That's why in a family you can have 5 people and they all have a different story about what their parents were like, and they all have a different story about what happened at that event, because their story is based off their own internal schemas or brain patterns. So number one, we are co-creating our life, and it's illusionary. It's an illusion based on our brain. That's it. It's not real. There is no real life. That is inside us. The real life lives inside you, and you can have any reality inside you, and then that will shift the energy literally of the quantum field or universe. So if you look at your internal world, that life, and you work on that, the outside shifts. It's a be it to see it reality. Okay? And as soon as you start owning that and being like, okay, it's not my ex-husband's fault that this happened. It's not actually my teacher's fault, even though, that wasn't really kind what she said. It was how I reacted to that and how I wired that in. Okay, well, I could do something about it, but can you do something about that teacher and fix her? No. Can you do something about your ex-partner? Probably not. Can you fix the government? Probably not, right? Of course we can do things to influence, but when we work on the internal landscape, when we work inside, then we actually shift that illusion and we get to see a new reality, okay? So everything outside us is just a result of old programming, paradigms, beliefs, thoughts, actions, doings, and our energy. And it lags, so that's number two. Number two, it's lagging. So the Amazon store, the quantum field, the unified field, source, God, whatever you want to call it. Everyone has lots of different names, and I don't want to offend anyone by saying God, but this is what some people call it too. The universal source, quantum field, is our Amazon store, okay? It's our Amazon store. However, it can't just deliver straight away like Amazon. Amazon, I don't know about you, but I don't really buy off Amazon. I know in the States it probably delivers pretty quickly. New Zealand, I don't know. But it won't deliver necessarily everything that fast. There's generally a lag. And why is there a lag? It's because the circumstances have to shift with you too. And the universe has to shift molecules to get that thing to show up. So the universe has it there for you. Everything you desire is in the field. Everything you desire is already in the field. Now, if you're going, I want $1 million, and have a good look at that. People say this. Is it really what you desire, or is it the feeling of abundance? Oh, you'd like a big new house. Is it really the house, or is it a feeling of security you don't have right now? But when you dig in and see what you truly desire, and it feels right and feels congruent, harmonious with you, and feels exciting, then it's already in the field, the energy of it. You've already created it, so it's done already. So your job isn't to create it. Your job is to move the blocks out of the way that are stopping it from showing up. So there is a lag, because sometimes if you're asking for the bigger house, or me asking to get to the beach, I had to surrender and hand over, and I had to let go of knowing where I was going to live. And when I let that go, my house sold 3 days later, and 3 weeks later, and it was a girl I'd known for 30 years. And she paid more than I asked, and she gave me a job that day and let my daughter stay, because I surrendered over the how and I allowed the universe to bring it in. Okay? So there is a lag, because you are the being that's creating it, materializing, not the universe. It's already there. And it's getting those blocks out of the way, where some things you don't have a block. So you're like, this happens to me all the time. Oh, I'm going to make pumpkin soup. Then my neighbour drops a pumpkin off that day. That's because you don't have a point of view about a pumpkin's hard to get. But some of you will have deep points of views that $1 million harder to get than a pumpkin when it's not. It's just you can't receive that yet. You haven't opened up the capacity to receive $1 million because you have lots of interesting points of views underneath about you, how you're not good enough. I'm not talking about you in general. I'm talking about all of us, right? You're not good enough. We're not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. So you're creating the money and the lifestyle that matches those hidden beliefs. So there is a lag for some things. And then other things come straight away, like you think of a friend and they ring you. And that's called a quantum entanglement. It's called a quantum entanglement. We're entangled with everything we desire. We're entangled with everyone we've ever met. We're entangled with people. We're entangled with everyone on this planet. And that's why when we have a global thing happening, we can feel really low. And we're like, why do I feel low today? Well, there's a war at the moment, isn't there, in Palestine? So whether you believe in that war or not, or whether you think it should happen or not, we can sense it. We can sense that lowness. So yeah, the Amazon store can only come in and bring you where you are right now, bring you and match you to your energy right now. So if you have something going on, then there could be a big lag. It could be a 10-year lag. But you know about a 10-year lag with traveling, but it wasn't because there was something wrong. I had to parent my kids for the last 10 years. And that was what was important and what I was committed to, not traveling by myself. I wasn't going to leave my kids. Great to have you on here, Anthony. Haven't heard from you for a while. Wondered how you are. So that's been a decade. But that's the right timing for me, right? My kids are 19 going on 20, 21 going on 22. It's the right timing to go. Where 10 years ago I had a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, right? That wasn't, even though I knew that was my deepest desire, to be traveling in our winters and come back, I knew also that wouldn't be happening for a while because I had 2 beautiful kids to bring up, okay? So sometimes the timing lags too because it's not the right timing. And other times the timing's lagging because you've got a block in the way. So if you want to have a beautiful relationship with someone that really nourishes you, you have to nourish you. And that's what I saw too. You create the relationship with where you're at. So if you're bullying you, you're more likely to have people bullying you, right? So if you've been kind to you and nourishing you, then you're going to have people in your life that do the same because it's a reflection. So if you don't want so much of a lag in certain areas, you have to look at who you're being. So number 1 was outside's an illusion based off our brain patterns, and we co-created it. So we get to also create something different and get out of that problem-solving structure and get into a, wow, what do I desire structure? So actually knowing what you desire is quite important. It doesn't have to be a thing, because a lot of the times it's just an energy but we think it's a thing. Like me traveling isn't necessarily about the travel, it's the feeling of adventure. And that's different for everyone. Some people find it adventurous to write a book. Some people find it adventurous to do triathlons, but they live in the same place, right? Some people find it adventurous to walk the beach every day. Other people find it adventurous to travel. So for me, it's that feeling of adventure and freedom, really. And we're all seeking that on some level, but we've forgotten. It's like we've been in a bit of a sleep. So that's number 2. The Amazon store can't always deliver, or it delivers in the right timing for you. Okay, now I can't remember my number 3. It'll come to me. Allowance can be practiced. It is something we practice, okay? You're not going to get it straight away. I wasn't completely in allowance of certain things when my marriage ended. I wasn't completely in allowance of the financial state I was in. But when I started to bring an allowance, money started to show up because I was like, okay, this is where I am. I've been given 5 years bad credit at the end of my marriage. I've got to find a rental. I don't know how I'm going to do this. The banks won't help me. I can't get any government help because I earned too much, but it wasn't enough to pay my bills. So, okay, universe, show me money. Show me my magic with money. And that's what I asked. And then over the next 5 years, I did a deep, deep dive into rewiring my money stuff. And I still have the odd thing pop up, but it's not so much rewiring now. It's just going, oh, that's an old pattern. Yeah, because it's not very much compared to what it was so long ago. So number 3, allowance is a worthy thing to be practicing. It is honestly the key to dropping your stress and overwhelm, is allowing the now, is allowing the present moment. And as I said, it's not acceptance. Acceptance and forgiveness is all about you did something wrong and I'm going to forgive you and I'm going to accept you. Where allowance is, okay, my ex-friend did that. Okay, my child did that. I'm not quite an allowance yet of it, but I'm going to release all the patterns and beliefs and emotions around it so I can bring back peace and calm to me. And I'm not saying that if someone does something to you, you just allow it. I'm not saying you don't go to the police if you're being abused. I'm not saying that. I'm saying your child might say something you don't like, and you're allowed to say something back. That's okay. But if you keep doing the same old thing, you get the same old result. And I can see my friend walking down the beach right now. So I was going to stop the call now anyway, but if you want to come and join me on my blaster class, come this Wednesday at 7 p.m. and come and find out some tools how to gain more allowance. Love you guys. Thanks for listening.